due to other equally important engagements, he is not going to make it this morning. What it means then is that the blind spot, use, misuse, and abuse of artificial intelligence is going to begin with a panel discussion, which will be led and moderated by Dr. Candida Nakuma. She has a panel of 4. Just as we did yesterday, we will not have a separate breakaway session where we're going to have Brigadier General Kachala, Mr. Machika, and I think Mr. Mpando. Mr. Wandawanda is not going to make it. Just a quick one to remind ourselves that yesterday we had a presentation on cyber security, national security, and development by Mr. Loiso Boyce, who took us into a world where he lives a boring but exciting life. We all remember what was in that envelope. We had a presentation on health, wealth, innovation, and technology for inclusive growth, which was, of course, followed by, that presentation was by Professor Madise, but it was followed by a very interactive session led by Mr. Clarence Gama. Very, very beautiful interactions, among them the fact that most of us may not have married those that we married if we met Professor Kwapata before. We are beginning the day today looking at the blind spot, as I mentioned, delving into the use, misuse, and abuse of artificial intelligence. And that will be led by Dr. Candida Nakuma, as I mentioned, Vice President and Country Director of the Agriculture Transformation Initiative. This is the foundation for a smoke-free world initiative. She is responsible for strategic partnerships with government, private sector, development partners, academia, farmers, civil society, and other partners, both domestic, regional, and international, in the agricultural sector. She works closely with partners to develop structured value chains that will promote transformation and inclusive growth. And she has extensive experience in agricultural marketing, agribusiness and policy analysis and advocacy. And of course, most recently, she served as Director of Research Policy and Partnerships for Farmers Union of Malawi, where she coordinated research, policy engagement, strategic partnerships, knowledge systems, and institutional planning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Dr. Nakuma.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you very much, Wisdom, for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and let me appreciate the leadership for including some stakeholders from the agricultural sector to be part of this very important gathering. Without wasting much time, I know that a lot was discussed yesterday, and we're building on what was already put as a foundation, and we want to look at the other aspects that maybe you're also having questions about. And with me, I'm going to have a very experienced panel that is going to help us think through some of the blind spots, use, misuse, as well as abuse of ICT and artificial intelligence. And I would like to invite you as an audience to be attentive and to also engage, because there will be a time where we'll give you opportunity to ask your questions, to make your comments based on what the panelists are going to share with us. So without wasting much time, I would like to invite to the podium the panel that we have. Mr. Akim Sanuka, please make your way to the front. Mr. Akim is a Senior Deputy Director in the Department of E-Government, Ministry of Information and Digitalization. The next panelist is Mr. David Kumwenda, who is the Assistant Commissioner of Police for the Southwest region. A hand for him as he walks to the front. The next panelist is Mr. Vincent Kumwenda, who is a Senior Manager for Technology and Digital Transformation at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. A hand for him. And last but not least, we have Mr. Peter Tsamwa, who is the Head of Information Technology, Head of Information and Technology Security at the Standard Bank PLC. So, welcome to the session. Sounds like it will be a very exciting session. I've had an opportunity to interact with each one of you, and you have a whole lot of experience and knowledge that I know you are prepared to share with the audience today. And I would like to start with Mr. Kumwenda.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Kumwenda, good morning.
There are two of us. Which one?
Yeah, okay, Mr. David Kumwenda. You know, we've got two Kumwendas here. So I'll start with Mr. David Kumwenda.
Yes.
Before I come to you, Vincent. So, David, one of the things that we want you to discuss is to do with issues of community and national security. We are aware that ICT is coming in different forms and shapes, and it's really integrated in a number of things. But one of the issues that I would like you to touch on is how are you integrating ICT in ensuring community and national security, to start with?
Well, thank you so much, moderator. One thing that I should say or emphasize is that as we are today, we should know that in community policing, as well as national policing, national security, as a police officer, what I would say is the role of the police on Section 153 of the Constitution is to maintain law and order, preserve public peace and protect people's rights. So if you talk of community policing, it's also a law in Police Act, Cap 1301, Section 119 to 123, where they say there shall be the community policing forum, where the citizens and police have to come together to advocate for solutions, because the people live in the community and the police is not always there, but they rely on, because they know those who make or who commit crime. So relating to your question, I would say, as of now, there was a survey that I did in Moroza on citizen participation, information communication technology, and the community policing. So we interviewed 432 participants. It was a mixed method survey. The findings were that in Moroza, in community policing, where we want to have peace in the country, avoid violations of rights, people are using ICTs like cell phones, they're using CCTV cameras, they're using alarms, and the software such as WhatsApp, YouTube, Facebook. They were using these for communication. And specifically, because these gadgets, the ICTs, are able to store, replicate, and disseminate information. So they were able to communicate to each other and deposit evidence. Now, if this is the case, it means that the citizens are able to communicate, to inform of their rights violations, and then they are using ICTs. Rather, if you are using WhatsApp and the Facebook, it means you are using AI because you could deposit evidence. So we have leveraged it, yes, but there are still problems that could come out of that. But what we can know is we are using these gadgets for national security in terms of guarding people's rights and then even depositing evidence. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe before I go to the next panelist to build on what you've just said, there's usually fear from the community sometimes to engage with your officers. Even when they've got information, sometimes there is that fear because they don't feel protected. As they relay information to you about a security breach somewhere, how do you make sure that these citizens are assured of their protection? They are not killed or they are not attacked before you've even acted on it.
All right.
Because you are from the police, that's why I'm asking you that question.
Yes, that's a good question. Yeah, so by the mandate of the police to maintain law and order, preserve peace and protect people's rights, I'm sure. If we are jeopardizing citizens' rights, I think it's not right. But to answer this one, I would say, just with what I've given you earlier on, the ICTs, when I did a systematic review of the literature on the publications that I did in that research, it was found out that the ICTs are able to revolutionize communication, where you have wide participation, anybody can participate at any time. Then there is formal and informal communication. So somebody can talk to the commissioner or the inspector general directly, not following the procedures that we used to do. So the AI there is facilitating an informal communication for them to understand. So they can tip information to the big officers. But this could also be detrimental because some others will say, why did you call the big boss? Then that is a problem. Or some other officers might even diverge information to those concerned as suspects. So really it can bring a threat towards that. But also the other versatility of this information communication technology is that it enhances citizens to actively participate in securing their lives. So they would organize patrols. You have seen some of the people within neighborhoods, they're organizing patrols using cell phones and other WhatsApp mechanisms, telling each other, can we move towards and do ABCD? Or there is a criminal who has come next neighbor. And then they can mobilize, wake up, or even arrest and call the police to come and pick. But also at the same time, it has revolutionized in terms that you can just take a picture of something. We have seen in the past where a certain driver was beating a child because of stealing potato somewhere. When they sent this, everybody was saying, police, what are you doing? At the end of the day, it had ignited investigations, and then because of this form, so it revolutionized. But at the end of the day, what I can agree is ICT, if we take it to be wide, non-formal and formal, and if we embrace it, it means we can fight together crime. But then to answer on how we can deal with such issue, I would say some other scholars somewhere else have said it's important to have robust ethical guidance. We should also invest heavily in infrastructure because sometimes people are using their own cell phones and then maybe some police stations don't have the facilities because there is no investment. We need a partnership. But also we should say that the law itself has to come in. So if you look for Electronic Transaction Act 2016, you'll find that there are offenses. The offenses, for example, if I gave information to somebody else, a police officer, to say this one is doing ABC. At that time, this is personal to person. If the police officer diverges somebody else, then that is a crime now. Because it is regarded that it was it was confidential between me and him. But if I took it to somebody else, then now it is coming with offenses. So if you read the Electronic Transaction Act, Section 3078, you find that it is saying if you are using a domain without license, it's an offense. If you go to Section 8, just to give 83, the court can bring search warrants to find out who has deposited. But since it has an element of replicating, disseminating, and storing information, it means somebody who has a sinister motive. If we make a follow-up and search in that database, we'll find somebody who had malice. And then those people can answer because the court will give us evidence. Okay. There are people who have taken call logs of their wives or husbands, because Section 21 says privacy. You can agree with me that your phone is in your name. Your husband's phone is in his name using your special ID and his special ID. So those are your private issues. But sometimes Kacha can say, you are my wife, I can enter in. So those are our issues. If you look at this Electronic Transaction Act, and if people are sensitized, they will know their rights and the law. And more especially now with DG saying that we are having 4 bills about data protection, and we're also talking about cyber crime, and I think there was something else. If we have all these laws, and then we can take them and understand the versatility of the ICTs, I'm sure we can trace, and these people can be taken before the law, and then others would learn from it. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, David, for really being extensive in responding to that, and it gives us a natural segue to Vincent. Working with Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, I would like you to share with us how do we get the citizenry to really use IT in a positive, for a positive impact. I think building on what he has just said, how do we create that awareness for a positive use of ICT? Because I think now we need to take it to a higher level where everybody really knows is responsible in terms of how they can use it for the good of, security of the country or of individuals and the like. And if you can also link that to decision making, because I think there's a lot of decision making involved from what David has just said. How do we also, link those two together? If you can help us think through that.
Thank you for that question. I can give you 10 plus reasons for that, but I will limit my response, I think, to a very few reasons. I think, first of all, I should emphasize on what he's talking about in terms of the importance of digital and ICT. I think we've reached a stage where if you are a leader, whether political, business, or even community, if you want to control the physical world, you need to have a good understanding of the digital world where we are at the moment. So even for the citizens, I'm looking at, first of all, if we are able, I know the most obvious question would be, most obvious answer would be awareness, but I should also emphasize on the point of simplifying AI concepts. I think a lot of our citizens don't really understand the AI concepts. I think it's that higher level. So we need to come up with clear, relatable, and tangible use cases, whether it's in health, agriculture, education, that the citizens can be able to relate. Because some of the issues that they're having are a matter of life and death. So the question is, can AI respond to my issue very clearly? And then that would drive them to use AI very easily. I think the second thing is building trust and also addressing privacy concerns. I know we've pushed out a number of policies and papers and all that, but in practice, are citizens considering themselves safe if they use some of these concepts and AI algorithms that we're putting out there? So building trust and addressing privacy concerns, but we should also make AI very accessible. Like user-friendly interfaces, open up opportunities for startups, emerging entrepreneurs to build on top of the different large language models or the different algorithms that are going to develop over the years. We should also be able to create proper policy and ecosystem support. I know there's a lot of talk around coming up with maybe AI-focused policies, regulations, and all those ethical support and all that. But for an average citizen, they need to see where is an entry point for us to kind of enter into the AI space and be able to contribute positively. For the leaders, I think the first thing that we need to be looking at, can we build capacity for leaders, not only to use AI, but they should be able to be in a room, understand AI to the level that they can propose digital or AI solutions without technical people being behind them. We've seen in other countries where leaders, policy leaders and decision makers are very able to articulate AI or digital without even making reference to, I've got an IT guys come here and explain this concept and all that. So we need to build capacity to that level. And at the same time, we should also have like systems that are very focused on that. I've been imagining, let's say, government-wide large language model system that helps to put all the policy papers in one place, all the data, and that it should be easy for a leader, a government leader today, to develop memos, policy documents, or even predict economic trends, weather patterns, and all that. Imagine if we have our own government chat GPT that is able to do that. We've got a lot of data. We can already start building algorithms that can be able to answer such things. So these are the conversations that we should be having even at the leadership level. Yeah.
At the leadership level.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, talking of at the leadership level, is that something that we are deliberate about? Do you see that as something that we are tackling in the boardrooms, in the corporate world? Is that something that we are really paying attention to as something that is really important?
I would say we are doing it, but we are at a very early level, like baby steps. I think there have been conversations, but we can do better. We can be very intentional to make sure that we are prioritizing digital and AI at the center of everything. I think in terms of the opportunities that are there, and even to make sure that we are putting our resources where our mouth is, I think that's where now we need to start walking the talk. These initiatives are, it's encouraging to see these initiatives, but we need to be looking at what next. And then what can leaders be intentional about to pick out some of the things that can now start bearing results.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I think yesterday you had some conversations around health, around education, and I think these are some of the issues that I'm hoping the Institute leadership is taking into account to see how we then integrate the different sectors and make sure that they are technologically savvy and also embrace IT in any of our sectors that we have in the nation. Now, moving to you, Peter. You are from the Standard Bank private sector, and I know that one of the key challenges that we are facing now is in the realm of cybersecurity. So would you just share with us, some thoughts around use of AI? How can we leverage AI in dealing with cybersecurity threats that we have in the financial industry, but also, just across?
Okay, no,
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So when it comes to AI, it's starting to play a very big part in cybersecurity. So essentially, in cybersecurity, we protect digital assets from being compromised. So we look at environments vary in size. So with our environment, we're looking at over 1,000 computers, which we need to protect, and user activity. So what AI helps is to now consolidate the activities that we have in the environment. And essentially, in the past, well, I'll give an example of a virus coming into an environment. So in the past, if we had a computer virus that's coming to the environment, it meant that you needed to log on to a certain server to then look at your activity for the viruses. And then you need to look through what that server is reporting, and essentially you then need to action it as a human being. So you make a decision: do I clean the computer, or do I try to quarantine the virus? So sometimes when you do run that activity, you'd find that you can't even remove the virus. So essentially that means the virus could spread, or physically you'd need to find a way to access that machine and take it offline. So looking at an environment where you operate across the geography, that meant you'd either need to go there or get someone to remove that machine. So when AI solutions came in, there are several AI solutions which I know different organizations are using. There's something called DuckTrace. There's something called Microsoft Defender for Enterprise. What these solutions now do is they look at your whole environment, not just the computers, but even the network devices. And then we're able to monitor the different activities, and it's able to put a story so that you can look at that story and it sends you an alert. But with time, it's also able to learn what the preferred actions are. So if it tries to remove the infection on the machine, but it fails, it can actually remove the machine from the network. And then after that, it's also able to build a picture, diagrams to show you how that infection happened, to show this person went to this website, this person accessed this USB, and that makes it easier for us to then report. So essentially, it means that cybersecurity has embraced AI in a manner where we can now also use the resources. These are the staff that are within the security teams or the IT teams to then start looking at other proactive measures in terms of how do we protect the environment. And one last thing that is of interest is how these solutions would now work is that if there is a new threat, we call it threat intelligence, they will gather that information to say that, let's say in South Africa, we're seeing this ransomware spread, and it's starting to spread to Zambia, Tanzania, so Malawi could also be impacted. Then it's able to proactively tell you that these computers or these user behaviors are susceptible to that type of attack. So you can then proactively also fix your environment.
Great. So I think what I'm picking is all the advantages or how we can actually leverage AI in dealing with cybersecurity threats. And I would like to imagine that organizations are working or investing in their systems to make sure that they are protected themselves. Can you just share with us some of the dark side of AI? I don't think it's all rosy there. What would be some of the, dark sides of AI that you'd like us to be aware of?
So AI essentially is a tool. So a tool can be used both for positive impact and negative impact. So I think Rachel yesterday highlighted the deepfakes very deeply, and those are one of the new challenges that are there. So I'll not go a lot into the deepfakes, but I'll go on something that's a bit more realistic that we've experienced. It's around what we call phishing. So this is when you get these email scams that want to gain access to your environment by getting information out of you. In the past, we would see phishing emails having English that is, it's easy to pick. It wasn't perfect English per se. It was broken, what we call broken English, because most of the threat actors were coming from other environments where English was not their first language. So it was easy to identify that this email is a phishing email. But what we've seen recently is very targeted emails. So we call it spear phishing because they target you specifically. So for the CEs in the room, mostly you find that you're part of the annual reports. Even your signature might be there. So essentially, even the board members, the information is sort of public. So what these, we call them threat actors, they're able to do is they're able to get that information, feed it onto something like ChatGPT, and then it creates a specially crafted email that talks to your environment, it talks to your activities. And then it makes a request for you to transfer funds to another party, for example. So it's brought in that challenge where we now need to obviously make sure that we train people to identify these emails, as much as we are also having systems on the other end that we can also try to identify the fraudulent emails.
Yeah, okay, so a lot of training needed for people to really be able to identify whether this is really coming from Candida or it's coming from Peter, it's a legitimate email, I should respond or not. I think there's a lot that goes out there and people will just quickly click on something and then you're falling for something that is actually dangerous. So let me move to the government. You coordinate from the e-government department. You are responsible for coordinating systems, internet, storage of data. What are some of the threats that you've come across, and what are you doing to mitigate the threats?
Thank you so much for having me. As you've indicated, yes, I'm coming from the Department of E-Government. Its mandate is to coordinate, to lead, and to manage ICT services, and as far as the public service is concerned. You may see from the way it is sounding, it's a huge responsibility. We have the Malawi 2063 agenda that has laid the foundation for the digitally enabled future. Just like any business, government business runs on data. Data today is the gold that has to be mined. Unfortunately, the playing ground is the same. So we have people with good intentions looking at using the same data for good purposes. Now we have threat actors looking to leverage from the same data for their own bad intentions. Number one, as government, you already alluded to the enactment of the E-Transaction and Cybersecurity Act of 2016. It's very key. It means that government recognizes cybersecurity to be of a great concern right now. Its whole purpose is to bring about the framework on how these issues to do with cybersecurity can be addressed. We have issues to do with cybercrime. We have issues to do with data protection. We have issues to do with privacy. I want to touch on something else that maybe has been partially discussed, but not in its full extent. There is what we call the darknet, the dark web. Much as the E-Transaction and Cybersecurity Act is there to provide the framework in addressing these issues, but now we have the dark web. How do we address these issues? What is the dark web? The dark web is the subset of the internet, the very same internet, where the regular search engines such as Google cannot index to the extent that a normal user, a normal internet user, even the authorities find it hard to regulate this part of the internet. The dark web, that's where most of the illegal activities take place. As government, what are we doing? We are very much aware of these threats. There are several initiatives that government has taken place. The establishment of the government sector's computer emergency response team that is housed under the Department of E-Government is mandatory responsible for that. We have the infrastructure to protect. We have the internet itself. We have the storage to protect, that is storing sensitive information that runs government. We also have the national cybersecurity strategy that has been put in place. This one is very comprehensive. It aims at guiding the efforts to enhance cybersecurity. Now, we've talked about data. Government requires data for policy development. Government requires data for transparency and accountability. Government requires data for resource allocation. But how will this be achieved if people are misinformed? There is a lot of misinformation that is going out there. How do we fight? How do we mitigate? At the end of the day, we have a user. We can have very robust systems put in place. State-of-the-art security measures put in place. But have we taken care of the one sitting behind that computer? The one sitting behind that machine? How do we protect? So there is need to be aggressive when it comes to awareness. Let us allocate resources deliberately to make sure that people are aware of these threats. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Akim. One of the things that, I'll get back to you. I just wanted to quickly follow up with you. You are with government, and you've really talked about the need for us to make sure that data is protected. All these, structures that you've put in place to make sure that data is protected. But one of the things that I've observed, you correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the government officials that I work with, when I communicate with them, I'm communicating with them through their Gmail, their Yahoo, Hotmail, and whatnot. And they are talking government business with me. How do you, I mean, how do we deal with such issues? Because I think there is a threat there, because you are releasing information into the private world. So maybe just speak to that a little bit.
Thank you so much. It's a good observation that is out there, not only you. As government, we have, maybe you've heard about the Digital Malawi project. So the Digital Malawi project has produced a baby known as the new emailing system for government. Now, how do you become a government employee? It means you submit an application, you attend interviews, then later on you are offered the job. The moment you're offered a job, there is a requirement for you to be integrated into the system. Government should know you. You have to be, at the end of the month, you have to receive a salary. So the way government identifies its own employee, it's through the employment number. By default, if you are a government employee, it means you have an employment number. As a government, we use that employment number to create an email address. So I would like to say that if you are a government employee, by default, you have an an email address.
Are those email addresses functional?
Yes, they are fully functional. So I'll go there. They are fully functional. What happens is that the employment number acts as the primary. Now, depending on which department you are, we have to make sure that it aligns with the department that you are working with. The next thing is the user has to be told, has to be given that email address. Now, this is now happens at the departmental level. As e-government, we are taking care of the technology part. But now when it comes to enforcement, it is at the department level. We cannot be everywhere, but directives are there. Every government employee knows that they are supposed to be using the email address, the official email address. But now what the challenge is maybe there is, it is an office, one will tend to argue that I don't have an official computer for me to be using. Can I use my mobile phone to access email address? So these are the questions that comes up. But we are making strides in making sure that we encourage public servants to be using official emails.
So I hope we can take note of that as one of the major threats that we have in as far as data protection and national security is concerned. I would like to make sure that take note of that, and we make sure that we are putting in strategies of dealing with that, because as government you're supposed to be, I mean, you develop these policies, but we are not implementing them. So let's take note of that, and then as we look at issues of resource allocation and security issues, this is that we're prioritizing. Vincent, you wanted to raise something before I go to the audience. I'll give you a minute.
Yes, yes. So at the Institute, one of the things that we do is we support the Malawi government, the Ministry of Information and Digitalization, and other MDAs in terms of strategy, policy, and delivery, all that anchored by technology. So we are privy to some of the information that they are working on. So I wanted to add in terms of the threats. I think 3 threats that we've noticed, because at some point we were tracking over 80 projects that are leveraging digital in Malawi. So I think you also want to know that, number one, you've seen websites that have been defaced or even taken offline. Government websites, people would come in and take over, probably deface them and put in different information that is not related to that. It's been happening. You also understand that there are issues to do with the attacks, like actual ransomware or actual systems attacked by hackers in some instances and all that. It's a threat that is real out there. And then there's also a threat of weaponizing IP addresses. So because of access entry level, like what is talking about, that maybe they may not have control of some of the systems and all that, hackers will be able to use some of the IP addresses to commit crimes in the name of a particular IP address maybe operating from Malawi. It's happening both in private and public. So those are threats that we should be taking very seriously, so that we are leaving out a lot of loopholes that people are able to take over some of the systems, and when time comes, they're able to strike and even use our IP addresses as weapons attacking other areas, and then you get messages that your IP address is attacking our system, but you might not be the one attacking it. It's being used by someone else somewhere else. Just wanted to add those things, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for those additions. I know that private sector pays serious attention to that because they know their investments are at risk. And I think government, it should also be something that we are keen on, because we are dealing with issues of national security. At this point, I would like to take a few questions before we get back to the panelists with some of their additional thoughts from the audience. Do we have any? Yeah, I see we already have 5 hands, so I'll start with Clarence, then I'll go to William. I think we'll take all the 5, and then we'll let the panelists respond. Can we have a roaming mic, please? Yeah, Clarence, before you come in with your question, I think today the moderator, Wisdom, wants things to be done a little bit differently, and I'm under instruction. So before you come in, I would like to ask Mr. Sunge Mipando to just give us your thoughts from what the panelists have presented. What are your thoughts? And then if you can come somewhere in the front. And also Brigadier General Cleveland Wilson Kachala, if you can make your way to the front. And then Mr. Patrick Machika. I'll give each one of you just a minute to give us your thoughts around what the panelists have shared, and then we'll get to the Q&A session. Yes.
Thank you, Candida. One of my thoughts were that we should realize AI can be used in both ways. We talked about protecting the systems. It can also be used to attack the systems. So the same AI can have positive and negative aspects to it. Secondly, AI in terms of cybersecurity is not replacing humans. It's just making sure that the humans are equipped to protect the systems better. In terms of the private sector, as the head from Standard Bank mentioned, it just helps them to protect the systems better. It can also be used to, for defense mechanism. I think we are with the army here. It can be used for defense mechanism as well. And fourthly, from the aspect of the police, it can be used to monitor the population, to monitor the activities of attackers to us as the population within Malawi. So our friends are able to utilize AI to prevent rather than to find out who attacked who. So prevention is a much better option than to find out that I have been attacked, who attacked me. So those are the thoughts which I thought I could add to it.
Thank you very much, Sunge, for those additions. He's saying that AI is not meant to replace humans, but rather we should become technologically savvy and be able to use this to our own advantage. So I'll come to you. What are your thoughts based on what you've just heard?
According to what the panel has discussed, my thoughts are that the AI, the primary advantage is to overcome bounded rationality of human beings, to actually help to enhance the information superiority in a positive manner. So we are talking in terms of offering superior quality service. So it is something that is there actually to supplement limited intellectual capability of human beings. But at the same time, we can see that this one can also be used to manipulate unethical things, which means that when we are looking at like in defense and security, or the spectrum of conflict, it is the thing you can use for at the other end of the spectrum to negotiate, discuss, reach solutions, arbitration, then right up to total war, where AI can also be used to leverage advantage to overcome various threats. So in this case, I see that it is a very important tool that if we grasp as a nation, we can be able to be much more competitive.
Thank you very much. Definitely would like to be a competitive nation that is not doing things without being properly informed. Let me also have your thoughts based on what you prepared.
Thank you so much. My name is Patrick Machika. I'm working with the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And thank you for convening this quite interesting topic. So I'll start from maybe commenting from the panelists, some or two issues that were mentioned. I think issues of having a chatbot. Maybe I think it's high time as Malawi, as a public servant, for example, because with AI, you can interact with machines using your natural language. So as such, I think there is a need for us as public servants to move into AI and provide the citizenry with a natural interaction in terms of their language. That's one thing. The second thing I think which the Senior Deputy Director mentioned is on infrastructure. Because for us to implement AI, there is need for quite a lot of investment in terms of the computing facilities that you need. So there is need for us to invest, and I think I'm glad that we have invested in data centers and the like, but there's need to do more so that we can share these compute facilities where we can develop AI-enabled public services. And last but not least, I think as you mentioned, I think the issue of using government emails for government transactions. I think we should be scared, because if I use Gmail, for example, to interact officially with you. We have talked about, I think, some of the dark side of AI. How do you know whether that information has been mined by Google, for example, has been mined by Yahoo for other purposes? And also, actually, they are selling that same information that we are providing freely, to those people out there, and then we can buy it later on. So finally, as I said, I come from Ministry of Trade. Everything is about trade. As a country, as an individual, you slept, you woke up, you came here. Anything that you did is related to trade. You have to sell. You have to buy. So as Malawi, we need to be competitive in terms of our products. We can use AI. I think we can use AI to improve our productivity. We can use AI to produce services and products that are competitive, low cost, so that we can sell them outside and make more money. We can use AI as AI and be innovative to create solutions that we can sell as Malawi outside. And there we can reach the Malawi that we need, the 2063. So AI is really important. I think we cannot do without AI. Let's use AI for the public good, and let's move away from opportunity to necessity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as I walk back, one of the things that you've just touched on, let's be innovative, let's create solutions leveraging on AI to deal with challenges that we are facing. And we've got a number of corporates in here. You face challenges in your world, but most of the times the solutions that we are getting are imported. We've got technology companies in here. Have we gotten to that level where we are able to develop solutions to the challenges that we've encountered in this ICT and AI space? And I think that's a natural way to give the mic to Clarence, who is the CEO for Nicotech. What are we doing?
Thank you very much. First to say, the thing about technology is it is not unique to Malawi, the US, Silicon Valley. So it is easy for a student from MUST to study something that Facebook is doing and start implementing it here in Malawi. So the capacity to develop solutions is very much there in Malawi. In fact, we see a lot of very good innovations coming out, especially from the youth. So as technology companies, it's just a question of scaling up, but not necessarily developing the idea or developing the solution. So capacity is there. What we need is support from Malawians, the government and the private sector to initiate that level of confidence that enables everybody else to deal with the local companies. But otherwise, while there are more advanced technologies outside Malawi in other countries, I can surely say in terms of developing solutions, that is not unique to Kenya, Rwanda. It is really something that even here in Malawi we're doing. So that's basically my comment towards whether we are able to to develop such solutions to respond to the issues we have in the country.
Now you can get to your question.
Now my question, before I ask my question, a comment to Akim is that you raise a very important issue around email addresses, technology being there, but execution sitting at MDA level. My view is that you said the e-government has mandate. It's about time we start using that mandate to make a difference, because it's food for thought, not for you to answer, but to say, because the e-government can't have mandate at the same time and say we are not able to fully enforce email addresses. But the question I had, and again it's for you, Akim, because you mentioned the critical role that the Malawi CERT does in security, in responding to security. Are we able to quantify at some point in terms of statistics the response that, or the number of queries that Malawi CERT receives? To say we received X number of requests for support from citizens that were attacked. And this is what we were able to do about it. I'm wondering whether, as a CEO of Nico Technologies, if I face an attack that I can't contain, can I bring it to CERT and CERT would be able to help me? And are there people who are doing that currently? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's pass the mic to William, and panelists, please take note of the questions that are directed to you. You will respond after all the questions have been given.
Thank you. I think I've got a comment, then a question. The comment is on the use of private emails and linking it to what Peter was talking about. He was talking about tools like Darktrace and others. Now, if you're using private emails, you're using private gadgets like your private mobile phone, your WhatsApp for official communication. Basically, these tools will now become useless. You'll invest in them, but now they can't go into these private emails, phones, because now you're breaching data laws. So basically, to me, it appears like it's an issue of accountability or running away from accountability. So it's a serious matter that needs to be addressed, not just at government level. I know private corporations that use WhatsApp groups for official communication of things, which is not the right way to go about it. My question is very simple now. Does Malawi have an actual AI strategy that links all this, what we're talking about? So when we're talking about AI, it appears to me we're talking about AI in pockets. But what is the central, what is driving that AI strategy as Malawi, for Malawi as a government in all the different departments, ministries, and MDAs? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Candid. I also have, excuse me, a comment and then a question to follow up with that. And my comment is really in relation to the conversation that the four gentlemen in front have spoken about. There's been quite a lot of talk about AI adoption. We need to do it. We need to be proactive and move forward. I just wanted to share a personal experience from my organization in relation to the adoption of AI and some of the things that we looked at, which I think could also be beneficial to others. And then after that, I'll ask a question. So when we talk about AI, we really, I think most of the times, the thing that people associate with AI is ChatGPT and all those things, because those are the things that came out. So in our organization, one of the things that we did at the very inception of AI to try and make sure these blind spots and some of these issues that we worried are actually taken care of was we engaged experts who had done research in AI to sort of do a bird's eye view to all the staff to explain what AI is, and mainly specifically in relation to matters like copilots, ChatGPT. What is it that they are? What are the good things that you get out of it? And what are the things that you should be scared of? And one of the things that we were able to quickly disseminate to our staff is for people to understand and differentiate between public AI and corporate AI. So ChatGPT is public AI. If you go on ChatGPT, you put anything, you have no control because it's public. Whatever you put there, it goes out. So first information to all our staff is to really understand what are you putting on that particular AI tool that you have. Because if in some places when you put it's gone, it's gone. And then these days we have copilots that have come pretty much with every application. We are all in here, most of us are consumers of Microsoft 365. Within Microsoft 365, you've got the free Copilot, but you also have the corporate Copilot. And I think it is really good for us to start talking to our users, for them to really understand that if I want to write a document, how much sensitivity do I want to share with a Copilot to be able to get what I want to get? You find that because of the excitement of AI, people are dumping information onto these copilots that they shouldn't be dumping. You are putting in a whole financial report because you are lazy to try and do that work because you think Copilot is going to do it. Yes, it will do it, but it will also collect information about your organization. So I think it would be very critical for us as we come out of this space to try and also ask the question, which is now the question I want to ask. As a nation, what can we do? What organizations are there or can we identify that we can all reference? First, that can help to teach and disseminate information about the proper use of AI. Then people can go and say, okay, there is this organization, you can run sessions. They don't have to be IT people, by the way. Some of these people are people who have just done research. And the other thing is, what can we do as organizations to prevent some of our users just jumping into using AI? Are there organizations, are there things that we can do? I know that we have Nicotech in here. Are there tools that we can block some of these AI tools before our users adopt them? Because some of them are just coming. I mean, today Acrobat has it. Any application you have has it. But what can we do as a technology sector that can help, not necessarily to control, but to manage the adoption of AI? Because trust me, everybody is excited and people are dumping information. That's very critical to organizations, and they just realize that information is gone. I thought I should add that comment, but the second part is the question. And I've seen my colleagues in front nodding their heads, so I think there are responses somewhere. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll respond to the questions at the end. I'll take two last questions.
Thank you very much. It's really frustrating to have issues in Malawi taking time to be listened to. We started pushing for national strategy in 2019 about AI. And we've been involved in developing of the continental strategy and all those. Up to now, there's no clear direction whether you have national strategy. The national strategy will guide organizations to have their own organizational strategy that is aligned to the national strategy. And the national strategy is aligned to the continental strategy. So all these issues we are raising about how do we engage users, how do we choose which AI is good and so on, how do we choose open or private AI, all those things are usually spelled out in the strategy. And to answer William, yes, I would say no, Malawi doesn't have a strategy at the moment. And there's no strong signal that is coming forward that it will have a strategy in the next year or so. It's a little frustrating. But my comment, my question goes to Dev Kumenda. There's this phrase the legal fraternity is using, beyond reasonable doubt. In percentage terms, what is beyond reasonable doubt? The reason why I want to understand that is that at the moment I can say with confidence that there's no software in the world or equipment that can detect an audio, an image, or video 100% to be original. What it means is that I can frame Professor Mura clearly, his voice, his message, his emotion, and claim that he committed a crime. How does the police and the judge convince themselves that this is evidence? That's the question I'm putting to Dev.
Thank you. Dev, you've noted that. We had one last hand at the back. It's okay? All right. No, he's fine.
All right. Thank you so much. The first thing I would say, it's so embarrassing at this age to be pushing for government to use emails, government emails. It's really embarrassing. And I think it has to do with the culture that the government sets for people to adapt to technology or not. So we should not say we will. Since yesterday, things that we've been hearing, it's we will, but nobody has said we are doing ABC or so. Now, going back to AI, I would say AI, it's more like if you feed it garbage, you get garbage. It's more of an enhancer tool to make it better or to make life easier. So whenever we say AI has got this dark side, it's you who has got a dark side to feed it to produce a dark product. So many examples we can give from the defense levels security, both Malawi police, the MDF. There are so many loopholes even that they are failing to utilize the opportunities that AI gives. We have got innovators in Malawi who can produce or who are producing innovations that can enhance security in Malawi. But those agencies to adapt, to utilize those, it's a challenge. So most of the things I wanted to add in is, to be clear, is our data secured in Malawi? If it is, how are we securing that? So that this question is going to Mr. Sanuka, Deputy Director. So there are so many examples we can give. I think 3-4 years ago, a certain senior government official said, "Aiwala email kunyumba." It was embarrassing. It was live on radio. He said, "Aiwala email kunyumba." When you looked at that, everybody was puzzled. But then, like I said, how safe is our data? Because there is the norm, the culture that all these MDAs are failing to adapt to change to technology. So that's the question I wanted to give to Mr. Sanuka. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions. I'll now get to the panelists, and those of you that are co-facilitating with me, I'll also get to you. You'll be free to comment on some of the issues that have been raised from the plenary. Akim, you had 2 questions directed at you. Please be brief. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let me attempt to answer the 2 questions, because the last one, I think the second one, has already been tackled by Professor Zimba regarding the AI strategy. So I will not touch on that one. Let me start by the last question to do with the embarrassment that we're facing in as far as official email addresses are concerned. It is a great concern. As a government, we are making initiatives just to make sure that we enforce. Now, what we're doing now is, government used to issue payslips, physical papers. We are phasing out that one. Your payslip will be sent to your official email, just to force you to go and get it there as one way of enforcing. So steps are being taken just to make sure that we encourage people to use official emails. We should also understand that cyber security threats are dynamic in nature. There is no silver bullet that is going to solve everything at once. Maybe the steps that we are taking last year or yesterday to solve a particular challenge, a particular problem, cannot be employed today because the landscape keeps on evolving. That is cybersecurity. So there are several steps that we are taking. For your information, there is a lot of capacity building in government right now. We are training a lot of hackers just to make sure that we decrypt that has been encrypted so that we can unhack that which has been hacked. Let me quote what Robert S. Mura III, former director at the FBI, said. There are only 2 types of companies. There are those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. Thank you so much.
Candida, before
statistics. About statistics. Clarence mentioned about statistics. Do we have the statistics that we can quantify how many incidents have been reported? I think that's data that can be privileged once you want to know the numbers. But the other thing is, people become
but is it there?
Reluctant.
Is the data there?
Yes, the data is there.
Okay.
Yes. But one thing we've observed is that most of the people, when they face such kind of attacks, for whatever reasons, people are reluctant to report. for several reasons. Just as organizations, it is hard to hear that Bank ABCD has been hacked.
Sunge.
Yes, I just wanted, there was a mention of infrastructure within the government.
Yes, sir.
So you are sending the pay slips to their emails.
Yes.
How are you handling the infrastructure side of it? Are they using their phones? And if they are using their phones, how protective are these phones?
I did mention about the dynamic kind of nature in terms of cyber threats. Security is employed in different layers. That is what we call defense in depth. As government, the infrastructure that we are using to offer these services, there are several steps that have been taken. We have a tier 3 data center that is in place. In terms of security, we are taking care of that. Yes, because the email service is a web application. It can be accessed anywhere. What we've experienced is a lot of phishing emails, a lot of spamming emails that have increased when it comes to the usage of the official emails. We are taking the internet to the remotest area of Malawi. You talk of Rikoma, you talk of Anje, you talk of Chitipa through the project. The increase in use of the internet, the increase in use to access public services has brought its own challenges that we are dealing with right now. Thank you.
I think I just got another question on the same. Does an employee in my village in Ncheu, Dzunje, a teacher, have a gadget to access the payslip?
That is another story. Yes, no. Yes, because if it is a public office, let's say you're saying a teacher, they may have, they may not have. Why? Through the project, the initiatives that we are taking, Makla is doing Connect a School. It means they're providing both the internet as well as the gadgets to use. The other initiatives that we've taken as well is to provide the necessary equipment to use, but not everyone has access to this equipment. This is one of the problems that we should acknowledge, that we need to do something about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hakim. I think as government, clearly there's a lot that we need to do in this space, and hopefully you'll be taking that message to the relevant offices that can act on this matter of agency. David, you also had some questions that were targeted at you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think the question came about evidence. Yes, so let me just start by saying Plato, a student of Socrates in Greece, said, it is not those who have learned the art of, it is not those who make too much noise that can navigate the ship. Rather, it is only those who have learned the art of navigation, because they will be able to differentiate between the realm of knowledge and realm of opinion. Because realm of opinion can always bring disorder in a particular discipline of society. So to come to policing issues, criminal issues, evidence. Section 41 of the Constitution, Malawi Constitution, says any person whose rights have been violated must seek legal remedies from competent officers. So people who go to police to lodge a complaint can be an allegation, and an allegation can be true or false. And that is why there is Section 42 on the Bills of Rights of the Constitution, that who is a suspect? A person who is a suspect must be arrested if you have found probable evidence, and bring them to court to tell them why you are detaining them. And it is the duty of the court from section 103 to 110 of the Constitution for the court to make arbitration. But at the same time, section 13, subsection A of the Constitution talks about peaceful settlements of disputes so that the court can take it peacefully. What I'm trying to say, there can be evidence if somebody complains. You cannot just say, I'm arresting somebody where there is no complaint. And if somebody is complaining, I'm sure there should be evidence. So when we investigate, we interview the complainant, and we visit the scene, and then we take the issue to court. Police does not have evidence, but gets evidence from complainants. So when you talk of reasonable, beyond reasonable doubt, it is somebody who is complaining who sees reasonable, beyond reasonable doubt. It is not a police officer who should be able to see beyond reasonable doubt. That brings abuse of office, section 95 of the Penal Code. Or rather, sometimes section 121 of the Penal Code, neglecting official duty. So in other words, to talk about reasonable doubt, there is a complainant. And usually when an offense is committed, there are two things. There is mens rea and actus rea, plus the existing offenses in that area. You cannot take an offense that is not existing in Malawi and start adjudicating it here, because that would be arbitrary. So we are against arbitrariness in the constitutional principles of human rights. I'm sure understanding that takes you to a level to understand to say, if you want to complain, bring facts. There should be what has happened, who has done it, where, how, and why. So the police will be able to get that. That's why issues which have arbitrariness, you find that they cannot be sorted in police. Yeah, thank you so much. I think I've answered that one. And to go further to say, who is supposed to be architect of his or her personal security in terms of national security? If I'm not protected by myself, then Malawi is not protected. Even MDF cannot protect us. But first of all, I have to protect myself. That's why every culture has its own language. It protects itself. So what would I say about AI? When you have your own cell phone, it is you who decides to go in a WhatsApp group and start giving out your information. That's why criminals will come to your house knowing that you are at a wreck, because you have given it to the public. So when you are using a group and as an initiative, give each other rules. For instance, as we are here, if we had created a WhatsApp group, it means issues we are discussing here should be here. But there are some other people who have been born to be, I can say, extraordinary. They will take this information, send it somewhere, and they expect us to protect ourselves. So the Malawi can protect itself by understanding that in ICTs and AI, there is no universal value. The way people behave in America cannot be the same as we behave here, though we are using some gadgets. But it is kususuka kwatu kumene kumapangisa kuti tizigulitse kuna wachi. So security, national security starts with us, ourselves, as an individual. If you go into your house, you don't lock your door, wakuba maruwa 5 minutes and steal. If you lock the door, you go to your bedroom, nobody will come and steal. So national security starts with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Brigadier, I would like to also get your comment on that issue.
Yes. They say, add a step to it. That was a Spartan boy's mother who answered when he complained his sword was too short. Now, where is Malawi in terms of this technology, modernization, development? I think Malawi, first of all, must take advantage of first move advantages, because the ICT is a rapidly, continuously changing, phenomena. Now, in terms of national security, we have the national security policy, and we need again a national security strategy so that we can be implementing and reviewing the gaps that are there, like ICT is not properly captured, and the major security concern of ICT is that to overcome them, we need homegrown solutions, which means the collaboration from academia, practitioners and everything to make homegrown solutions. Because, you know, nations are perpetually at war and imposing sanctions on each other in important things. So today, we can find we have computers, but no chips to Malawi. What happens? Or the broker access to the World Wide Web, will the government operate? So there's question of sovereignty if we don't have strong homegrown solutions to be able to compete and to be able to resist to threats. So I think our national security strategy should focus on really investing in bringing all these in building, manufacturing, and doing everything throughout the whole ICT value chain. Otherwise, if we depend on importing everything related to ICT, including knowledge, as a nation, we make us vulnerable. Secondly, I want to concur with my friend there that security starts from an individual. So it's very good that there's adequate awareness, education, and training so that people behave properly. Because the way you behave with your gadget, you don't protect it with, you're only relying on free software, whatever, it's easy to be hacked. And the moment an individual is hacked, it becomes a chain action whereby the consequences will proliferate to the family, to the organization, and to the nation as a whole. So the best thing I think is let's prioritize and invest in homegrown solutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and hopefully private sector organizations that are here, those that are in ICT space, you're hearing our call for homegrown solutions, and you take that seriously and make the right decisions and investments. Vincent, quickly, you had some questions as well, and I'll also get to you, Peter. There were some elements that you're supposed to respond to.
Yeah. I'll answer two questions. I think there was a question about training, digital skills, and how can we get people to understand some of these platforms that are there. I'll give you three initiatives that are happening. Last year, the Tony Blair Institute, in partnership with the Malawi government and the Malawi School of Government, we conducted a digital skills training. We're calling it Digital Skills Academy, where we trained over 150 civil servants, both from director level to some junior civil servants. It was not exclusively AI, but it was digital. And I think what we learned there is that there is need to scale it up. We're discussing with government how that can be scaled. And because I think what people were learning and were interested to learn was a lot more what we did not anticipate at that time. So there is room for us to incorporate AI in there. I agree with you. I think there's been a lot of misuse in terms of, or even just basic understanding. I know people who are deploying like AI assistants in Zoom meetings and all that. You'd find that people just flood you with emails after the meeting, sometimes even recording of the meetings and all that. Even private information is done that with fireflies and not takers and all those. So there is that. Number two, we've been discussing with the Malawi University of Science and Technology, Professor Zimba is here, with the the AI Center for Excellence, ICE, to train data scientists, about 300 data scientists. There's a partnership that they've signed with the AI Excellence Center, and we're supporting that as well. So we're working, our interest is how can we train even data scientists within government that can be able to work on some of these AI solutions that we're talking about. And then lastly, there is money, I think, around the Digital Malawi project that is meant towards digital skills. The focus, I think, for the first Digital Malawi was more on basic digital literacy across the country, training youth in business and IT and all that. But there is room to come up with solutions around AI. So I think it's a matter of how can we work with different corporates and be involved in that Digital Malawi project, that we can incorporate the AI aspect. Lastly, Bwana William, I think Professor Zimba answered very, very candidly about it. That's a situation at the moment. We don't have a comprehensive AI strategy. The question back to you, what can we do together to make sure that we are lobbying for this? I'll give you an example. As early as February 2018, Kenya constituted a presidential task force on blockchain and AI, and they had already started discussing and researching on what the Kenyan government can do in the AI and blockchain space, and some of the results are being seen now. So there is a lot of room for lobbying and bringing different stakeholders in one room and start looking at how can we push. I know there's some pushback to say that maybe already maybe in the digitalization policy there are elements of emerging technologies and all that, but that's not enough. We need like a comprehensive approach towards the strategies for AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent, and I'll get to you. You remember your question?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So there was a question around adoption of AI in an organization. So I just want to share some of the experiences. The first important part, I think, is to leverage off what you already have. That's key in terms of your controls. And when an organization wants to use AI, the expectation is you first do a risk assessment. So you assess the risk, and if you do not have that in-house capability to build your own AI systems, which I don't think a lot of us have right now, then you obviously might work with a third party. So there is a methodology called third-party risk management. So you need to be able to identify who are you going to interact with when it comes to AI. What is also critical, it means you need to have governance around that. So we talk about internal policies and standards, which awareness also comes as a big part once those policies have been created. And that means the awareness should not just be broad to everyone in terms of making it generic, but there are specific users of AI for different use cases. So you need to be able to identify what is the use case. So an example is if you have developers, they might want to interact with AI. You also need to teach them additional knowledge around what we call poisoning of models. So you can have that AI model in your organization, but someone can come and abuse it so that its results are not correct. And then AI models also do something we call hallucination. So people also need to be aware that the output from AI is not always accurate. And then another key part is around data leakage prevention. And this is one of the key tools that we have used in terms of what are people inputting into the AI systems. Then we're able to stop sensitive information, because you would not want us to put your card data into even Copilot. So the data leakage prevention plays that big part in terms of managing how you adopt AI tool.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see that there's a lot that we still need to do around this space. I think first and foremost, from the panel, it's been so revealing, the need for us to develop a national strategy around AI. And I know that as a nation, we take way too long to develop things that are really of national importance, and hopefully this one we can fast track it because it's a key issue that we need to deal with. The need for us to embrace AI as a nation, as organizations, as individuals. I know that organizations may not have the ICT capabilities internally, but I think Brigadier General there talked about the need for us to work in collaboration, in partnership, identifying who are the partners that we can actually latch on and work on the issues that we need to work on. The need for us to balance between security and privacy, that's very critical. The awareness of the blind spots so that we don't get into it and you just adopt everything that is presented to you. But the need for us to be intentional, to want to know the responsible use of AI, I think that's very critical. David talked a lot about constitution. I think we may have to go to the constitution and see. I don't know how many of us really know what is in there and how issues of security, issues of ICT and AI can be, taken care of. And from the corporates, I'm sorry, one of the things, I see a lot of corporate social responsibility projects that you undertake. And I'm just wanting to present this request to you. It looks like there's a lot of capacity building that we need to do from the grassroots to make sure that more and more people in our nation are aware of these things. And I'm wondering whether this is something that can be an exciting project for you to allocate some of your resources, some of the profits that you make. Can we do a corporate social responsibility project around awareness building on AI, responsible use of that? So we'll be talking to you, Professor Dan Kuwali. Please make sure you engage with the corporates that are here. Let them commit some resources that you can use to make sure that this is widespread knowledge and we create responsible use of AI. So I'll also be sending you an invoice for raising funds for you, because I'm sure these people are going to give you money for that. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking this panel. Thank you very much, Akim, David, Vincent, and Peter, Brigadier there, Sunge, and Machika. Thank you very much, and thank you to you as an audience for your participation, and wishing you a good day. Thank you.
And a round of applause for Dr. Candida Nakuma. Brilliant. You don't leave that stage for now, and Brigadier General, please join Sungeni. Yes, please do join the panel up there. Again, a single lady. So I need a beautiful photograph for the panel, and of course there is a token of appreciation from the National Defense College. Thank you very, very much. Yes, Brigadier General, yes, a token of appreciation. We will break briefly for a cup of coffee, and then we quickly get into the next session. I know that we are not very tired, so we may just want to grab that cup of coffee, come back, sit, and we roll into the next session. So from the back, we can start going for our coffee, and then we'll be joined by members of the panel, and all of us enjoy a cup of coffee. Thank you so very much. Another round of applause for the panel and Dr. Nakuma. See you in the next session. Welcome back. Those that have not resumed their seats, may we? And you can take off that beautiful music. Thank you so much. Having looked at the blind spot, use, misuse, and abuse of artificial intelligence, we're now going to look beyond Malawi 2063, securing the future of digital transformation. So this particular session will begin with a presentation, and that presentation, of course, will be followed up by another panel discussion, just like we did before we went for a coffee break. And leading this particular session is Dr. Chipo Kanjo. He's an associate professor, ICT specialist in the Department of Computer Sciences at the University of Malawi. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Dr. Kanjo. Where is Dr. Kanjo? Ah, okay. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning to you all. Yeah. Okay. This morning I'll be discussing with you the topic which was given, titled Beyond 2063, Securing the Future of Digital Transformation. So my expectation is that after my talk, each one of us will have to decide whether indeed Malawi will secure that future of digital transformation. And if not, we should also think about why is it that it doesn't look like we're going to achieve that. So I'll start by, next slide please. I'll start by looking at the current situation and what is it that we're doing as a country to ensure that we secure that future. And then we'll land where in the future and check whether digital transformation has been secured. So I'll start by reflecting on what we had previously, which is Vision 2020, and then do a quick comparison with the current Malawi 2063 agenda. And somebody yesterday said it's Vision 2063. So for 2020, we had a technologically driven middle income economy. And now we're looking at wealth and self-reliant upper middle income country by the year 2063. I had a quick look at definition of middle income country. Maybe we can quickly Google it and see what exactly were we aspiring to have, and whether indeed we were closer to our aspirations. The definition I had looks like we were not anywhere closer to middle income as was expected for Vision 2020. Now let's look at the lessons which would have learned from Vision 2020. Next slide, please. We had a number of lessons. Borrowing from Masanjala, a presentation he had for the National Planning Council some years back, he had evaluated a number of lessons and also a number of reasons where I would have gone wrong. He mentioned that economy did not grow at the rate we were expecting to achieve Vision 2020. And you can see from the graph that what was expected, the red dotted line, was not achieved. Maybe we were closer in 2007, but as years progressed, then it became worse. This is us, Malawi. We are the ones who are supposed to ensure that the graph goes above the red dotted line, not below. The GDP per capita remained below target. The economic transformation we were expecting was not achieved. So we were far from becoming a middle class country. Waste still, manufacturing collapsed. Agriculture dominance continued. Not that it's bad. It's not, but our expectation was that we would have more manufacturing companies. And looking back, I remember in Malawi we used to have a number of companies which were producing different things, but we no longer do currently. So those were some of the things which collapsed. We had Pew. We had bodies by Pew for buses and lorries. We had Mulanje Fresh Juice Manufacturing Country. We had BAT, so many different companies, but we no longer have them now. We no longer have equivalent of those companies now. We did not transform from an importing and consuming to a producing and exporting nation as was anticipated. So as it is, we're still importing and consuming. Waste still, corruption, perception worsened. And you can see from the graph that indeed from 2010 or 2012, the perception has been increasing. Next slide. Why did Vision 2020 fail? Some of the reasons have already been articulated from the earlier presenters, and these are reasons which, if you're looking at a private company, they can easily solve why they do have the vision and mission, and they ensure that they indeed follow that vision and mission. It's not something which is just there on paper. So we had reasons like lack of institutional home for Vision 2020. The National Economic Council, which was hosting, When it was dissolved, then Vision 2020 became an orphan. We also lacked some champions for Vision 2020. Capacity and willingness to implement was not prioritized. It was there, particularly during meetings. You hear people talking a lot about Vision 2020, but the actual going beyond diagnosis was not there. Implementation was not there. We also had weak linkage with mid-term development strategies. And talking of strategies, I think Malawi has undergone different policies and strategies across the years. But then, still, for Vision 2020, we had weak linkage with those strategies. And above all, there was lack of performance monitoring system. So who was checking? Did we have indicators to see how we're progressing for this vision? And the reason I brought this up is because we're going to look back where we went wrong with Vision 2020 and reflect where we are now and see whether we've done any corrective measures to ensure that we'll get there for 2063. So where are we within the landscape? A look at policies, projects, governance, institutions. We have several policies. Some were mentioned during the opening. I might have skipped them, and there's several others which collectively can change things for the better towards 2063. And we also have a number of institutions in place to ensure that this digital transformation effort is implemented effectively for Malawi. We also have a number of initiatives, projects. The list is not exhaustive there. And let's have a quick look at the pocket we have, the funds to take us there to 2063. Current situation, GDP per capita for Malawi is 672.9. You can have a quick search against the world's or SADC and see how we stand. And this is on our way to 2063, and we would like to secure that future. Access to electricity, 14%. We need power to ensure connectivity. We need power to all the different digital efforts which we can have as a country. Internet access, 18%. The AI we talked about, it's only 18% who can manage to do that. 18% against 100%, and most of our populace in rural settings, 18% towards Malawi 2063. And our disaster risk reduction is 1.8/5. I'll go back to the institutions we have available. We have SET, yes. We have Department of E-Government, and I will zero onto Department of E-Government specifically. I was checking the mandate, coordinate, manage, etc., all things ICT. And I tried to relate that and compare it with the mandate of National Statistics Office. Everything statistics, that's the mandate. You go to all MDAs, you find statisticians from NSO. Anything statistical in government has to be taken care by NSO. E-government, I moved to Ministry of Education, there's EMIS. Nothing to do with e-government. I go to health, there's DHD. again with a mandate from the same government, but specifically for digital solution, and so on and so forth. Ministry of Agriculture will find pockets of other personnel outside e-government. And then my question was, how are we going to do this digital transformation when we have pockets of different players? I don't know whether they coordinated or they coordinate in one way or the other. Now, again, as a way of assessing the situation, which is going to take us to 2063, I also had a quick look of how we are faring since 2020. Next slide, please. And I looked at our, next slide, please, GDP growth rate status. From where we were in 2019, year 2020, we had a GDP growth rate of 0.8%, and that was a 4.65 decline from the previous year. And then it increased by 1.95 in 2021, declined again by 1.83 in 2022, and we had a slight increase of 0.62 in 2023. This is on our way to Malawi 2063 agenda. We one step up, two back, another step, that's the way it is. Now, a quick look at the threats to digital transformation. Next slide, please. Currently, we have different threats: infrastructure related, human capacity related, economic related, institutional related, environmental related. That list may not be exhaustive, but we have different threats. For infrastructure, we have limited. We saw the 18%, and besides that being 18%, it's also intermittent. It's not as stable as it should be. So we have limited or intermittent connectivity. We do have power outages. We also have different cybersecurity risks, and these cybersecurity risks vary. Even those owning mobile phones, they do also, they are subjected to that. We've heard people receiving messages that the relation from South Africa has sent them some TV or fridges, but you should give maybe 100,000 upfront. And we also heard Rachel mention the mobile company, which is based where I come from, in Zomba. Zomba prison specifically. And we also have poor maintenance, poor or lack of maintenance. I've been asking myself why this is the case, that we really struggle where maintenance is concerned. And then a thought came that, what's the maintenance word in Chichewa? Maybe you can assist. Maintenance in Chichewa. Kukonza. Then for Chichewa, I would ask Kukonza Jan. Galimoto, what are we, you know? So I was like, maybe this is why, because we are not wired to immediately think about maintenance. Could that be the reason why we ignore it? But this is also a serious problem for us. We have very, very solid infrastructure wasting. We don't maintain. For human capacity, there is digital literacy gap. We have shortage of ICT professionals. there's also brain drain, and so many other reasons. For digital literacy gap, I'll give an example for the health sector, where there's so many digital solutions, and we go around trying to train the users to implement these solutions. They're trained to understand the solution. However, these are end users who deal with a large number of clients on a daily basis. So imagine patients at the hospital waiting for a clinician or an HSA to type with one finger slowly their name, their condition. Before you know it, the clients would start complaining and some would leave. So, meaning would have skipped one stage. It's not just about training them how to use the system. They need to be trained the basics first, the typing skills, so that they can type as fast as possible to ensure that they save these clients very fast. So there are certain things as we go towards 2063, which we can look back, reflect, and make some corrective measures. For economic-related threats, there's some financial constraints. I'm not sure whether most public offices have got their own homegrown ways of generating fund. And as such, there's a lot of donor dependency. We tend to depend a lot on donors. A problem comes, oh, somebody should assist us. Hardly do we hear of Malawians, let's put together a 10,000 each and contribute towards this cause. We also have high cost of digital services and equipment, because maybe computers, digital devices were so precious at the beginning, then we tended to have hiked the price. But there could be other better reasons why, for Malawi, we have very high digital, very high costs for digital devices. The institutions, like mentioned earlier, mostly there is lack of coordination as a way of emphasizing. You find that within the same ministry, Department A is doing the same thing. Department B, very similar thing, lots of overlaps, different name. And another maybe entity would also be doing something similar. That's Malawi for you. Coordination would have helped to ensure that no overlaps, but so we just complement efforts. And we also have the issue of corruption. Corruption was initially abnormal. Now corruption has become the norm. Within organizations or public institutions where you don't sign for a meeting because your COSHA says, I did not attend, I can't, people will start laughing at you. And then they'll give you a timeline. Before you know it, you dip into the same culture. And this is a society which has got very high hopes for 2063. Practice says, I can't get to 2063. Policy, we are there, 2063. Time to reflect And we also have a threat whereby we have regulations, yes. We have so many policies. We've signed so many conventions. You hear about a new thing, one of the first African countries to have signed, Malawi. And out there, Malawi is really commended for being quick in signing. But do we reinforce? Do we go beyond the diagnostics? We also have environmental threats, climate change, infrastructure damage. Infrastructure damage, I might say we have a higher percentage of infrastructure damage, not by design, but because there are certain steps we wouldn't have done. I remember in the earlier days, nobody would put up a structure without approval from the city or Malawi Housing Corporation. They would come check how you've designed your fence, how you've designed your septic tank, how you've mixed your cement. That no longer happen. And the people selling timber, they'll sell you 6 by 2. You measure, it's 4 by 2. And wind blows, you expect this 6 by 2, in reality 4 by 2, to be strong enough to hold that force. And when things disintegrate, we attribute that to disaster. But there's certain things which we can avoid. Now, moving on to the next slide, we're talking of digital transformation come 2063. But a number of prerequisites, a number of ingredients required for us to get there. Some, which I thought needs a lot of attention, I had put them into larger sizes, but it all depends on which area you're working on for the Malawi Agenda 2063. So we have funding. Funding we've already alluded to. High time we started coming up with ways of generating our own local funds for our own Malawi developments. We've got a good start. We've got the toll gates. But then it gets hindered by corruption, because there was an instance where we had some funds from the toll gate had disappeared. Only in Malawi where money grows legs or engines. We've got alignment, and I've highlighted alignment. If we don't align whatever we're doing in different MDAs, including private and NGOs, we'll end up doing the same thing repetitively. Instead of complementing the efforts and saving the other resource for something else, we would end up investing on the same initiative, but by different players. Sustainability is key. Whatever we do, previously we had this challenge of piloting. Pilots. Now the language has changed. We're working towards scaling, but how much scaling do we achieve? As we scale, do we have some exit strategies to ensure that beyond donor funding, Malawi as a country, this is what we're going to do? So there's need to plan some exit strategies, some sustainability measures for whatever we do. Entrepreneurship. We've grown in a culture where we believe so much in white-collar jobs. I'm glad Mr. William Mpinganjira is here, as a good example that it can be done. As Malawians, we can develop our own entrepreneurship to a large scale. And not so many weeks ago, Sparks was being opened, another Malawi homegrown initiative. We have in Doha, Mr. Napoleon Dzombe doing great things. So if Mpinganjira, if Dzombe, if Wisely Pili can do it, why not us? And from the revenues they collect, I heard Madam Candida asking for a cut from the private sector. So if many of us develop to that scale, it's possible for us to fund efforts and development projects for Malawi. Here we have so many different ingredients. If you're talking of digital solutions, we can't have them siloed. They need to be interoperable. And most importantly, we're talking of availability of internet, but then on the internet, we need to have content. Remember, Malawi is a country with 80% population in rural settings. Some of them are not that literate, but most of them can read and write Chichewa. Do we have content online which is Chichewa? Do we have content, a good percentage of content relevant for Malawians in the villages? Sunge mentioned a village. I can't remember which village that is. Dzunje. Do we have content which is relevant for someone in Dzunje? So these are some of the things which we need to think about as we aspire to get to Malawi 2063. Moving on, let's look at how we can get there. How we can get there. The usual assessment. We do a SWOT analysis for the country, and we've done so many different, we've done SWOT analysis for the country, for government, for ministries, for departments, for companies, so many times. We've perfected the act. That's what we're really good at. And somebody mentioned yesterday that are we not just a presentation country? And we're also famous for very good policies. But beyond the policy development, we tend to struggle. So this is our strength. Assessment is not a problem. Having done that, then next we need to evaluate the current capabilities. Sometimes it's that you know where the capabilities are, but the money is sweet. Should we shift this activity to where capabilities are? And we tend to get into a trap of no, because we don't want to let go the incentive. But then the process here is for us to evaluate capabilities. And then once you've done that, you know your SWOT, you know your capabilities, then you identify courses of action. And these are some of the things which were highlighted for Vision 2020 that we didn't do them as was supposed to be done. Having done that, Malawi is a big country. Chances are we'll have so many courses of action, but we need to prioritize. And you prioritize based on impact and based on effort. If we have courses of action which need to be done for Ministry of Education, train children, versus maybe something in, I'm not saying this other entity is not important, but for sake of example, maybe in tourism, and then you decide to invest in tourism, that would be, in a way, wrong priority, because once you educate, then the rest can follow. You also, having prioritized, supposed to develop roadmap or plan. For Vision 2020, did we have a roadmap? Maybe we did. Did we implement that roadmap? And having done that, you go to what we're doing in this symposium. Collaborate, invite partners. You can't do it solo. There's so much to be done to get to 2063. It can't be done by one player. So each and every partner would count in these efforts. And most importantly, there's need to ensure that there's stakeholder engagement. Next slide, please. Now back to my computer science thing. If Malawi 2063 works, then industrialization will happen, urbanization will happen, agriculture commercialization, health sector with interoperable digital solutions. The list can go on and on. People talked of precision agriculture, use of AI in this. All those could follow in place. Now, next slide, please. Let's look at the ideal or the maturity levels of digital transformation journey. We start with the initial stage, and this is a digital laggard. We go to managed stage, where you would have started developing digital capability. You move to defined stage, where there is average digital capability. And then you upgrade to quantified stage. In this stage, now you are competing with digital. And the last one is optimized, where it's based in class of digital marketing. Top range. I'm not expecting Malawi to be optimized, but out of the four, where are we? Where would you place Malawi? Anybody? Sorry? Initial this side? Did I hear managed? Sorry? Initial. We agree we are in initial. Between initial and managed, INIMA. Initial and managed. Okay. Let's be realistic. And we're doing this because if we are affected, then we'll work hard towards defined and quantified, or managed, defined, or quantified. One thing I've noted is whenever you go to private sector, they have the vision displayed, same for banks, core values, etc. But do we have the same for the public offices? Yes. Yeah. There's a question here that is a vision there for public service. It's there. Okay. There's a question. Are the visions there? Okay. All right. And we did a test. One of the, I said it's good, private companies have got visions. We're training some managers, and the first exercise was remove your phones your diaries, write down your vision and mission. Yeah? Only one person out of 30 was close to their vision and mission. So having it is one thing. Having it on paper is one thing. But having it embedded in you and following that vision on a daily basis is another. So yes, we need to move from initial to managed or defined as a country. Now, the assignment here was how will Malawi be beyond 2063? Would we have secured digital transformation? From the Malawi 2023 agenda, our aspiration was, or is, by 2063, income per capita would have been $4,000 US. Yeah? Vision 2020, we wanted to get to $1,000. We are in 2024. Are we there? And 2063, we want to have $4,000 US. We can, if we do the right things. However, we need, as a team, collectively, we need mindset change. It could be as simple as changing from being corrupt to being uncorrupt. Changing from not owning government assets to beginning to own that, including the policies and strategies. Most of the times we misuse things, and the saying is Zaboma. We also need to have effective governance systems and institutions. And most of these things boils down to the fact that most of the systems are weak. Maybe they're there on paper, but in practice, they are weak. We also need to enhance public sector performance. We heard of reforms. Good initiative. Is it being reinforced? Is it on paper? Is it consistent? There's also need to have private sector dynamism. Vision 2020, one of the weak points was the fact that private sector was not included as much. There's also need to have human capital development. We have a lot of public universities, private universities, and so many different professional courses. There's need to really work towards human capital development and focusing on whatever would have placed in the roadmap for Malawi 2063. Our economic infrastructure needs to be strengthened. Economic infrastructure. And then there's need to look at environmental sustainability. How are we faring on that front? So in conclusion, I would say with proper systems, with proper priorities, and reinforcements, our weakest point, reinforcement. Together, we can secure the future of digital transformation. Thank you very much.
It could be louder than that. What do you think? Together, we can secure the future of digital transformation. The gentle lady you heard from has 25 years experience in ICT research and with interest in health information systems, e-governance, ICT for development, and she's a member of the Malawi Health Informatics Association, ICTAM, and of course the Ministry of Health Community Health Technical Working Group, among others. You could see where that information was coming from. Huh? Very rich. Another round of applause for Professor Kanjo. She says that together we can secure the digital transformation beyond 2063. We would want to hear from a few more brains, and at this particular moment, we invite Mr. William Mpingajila, who is going to moderate a panel discussion to further dissect this particular subject and to further look into whether we can really together secure the future of digital transformation. Mr. Mpingajila, as he walks up front, is currently CEO for FDH Bank, FDH Holdings, Financial Holdings Limited, which has FDH Bank PLC, FDH Money Bureau, First Discount House, FDH Properties and subsidiaries. Is an accountant by training, but a banker by profession with extensive experience in banking, finance, and risk management. He holds a Bachelor's of Accounting and Finance degree obtained from the London South Bank University in the UK. He's a chartered accountant, a chartered banker. William also has MBA in International Business from the Grenoble Graduate School of Business in France, and an MBA in Banking from the Bangor Business School in Wales. William has had some leadership training at the London Business School and the Harvard Business School. A round of applause for Mr. William Mpingajila, who is going to moderate the next session. William.
Thank you, Wisdom, as ever, for the wonderful introduction. Our session today, at this time, will now be talking about, we've been talking about the high-level strategy aspects. Now we're going to try and move into the execution part. You know, beyond the document, what can we do? And to do this, to help me do this, we have 4 panelists today. We have Miss, and this is a very unique panel from what I've seen over the past 1.5 days. You will see what I mean. We have Miss Iomelda Kandiero Sabuni. As I call you, please come to the stage. And she's a product manager and IT service delivery, project management, and cloud management expert. She has over 12 years experience in IT service delivery, project management, cloud management as well. She's currently working for Nico Technologies and is coordinating the development and deployment of innovative solutions aimed at digitally enabling clients and optimizing their business operations. Thanks, Samantha. Next, may I call Ms. Tusaiwe Sikwesi. She's a public policy analyst and a development enthusiast. She is passionate about empowering others to allow them to create significant and sustainable change for themselves. Currently, Tusaiwe is working for Action Aid Malawi as a policy coordinator. And can I have on stage Miss Isabel Kumwembe Stewart. Ms. Isabel, she's a leading development professional with over a decade of experience and currently serving as a special projects manager at ALX Africa. Isabel is recognized as an Obama Africa leader, Global Health Corps leader, as well as an Aspen Institute fellow. And finally, may I have Ms. Thandikile Chisara Mvundula, who is currently the Vice President for the Council of African Space Agency, African Union. She also chairs the Malawi Space Agency Task Force. And Ms. Thandikile Chisara Mvundula is a seasoned executive and a visionary leader with over 3 decades experience in transformative experience in information and communication technologies, strategic business management, policy development, and governance. Ms. Mvundula actually founded Malawi's first commercial internet service provider, and was the first woman-owned internet service provider on the continent, and this was called Epson and Omega in 1994. I don't think she would be in that first quadrant that Dr. Chipokanjo was presenting about, would she? Definitely not a laggard. All right, so our discussion today will be focusing on Beyond Malawi 2063, Securing the Future of Digital Transformation. Do you now understand when I said my session is unique? All right, thank you ladies for taking time out to talk to us today about digital transformation. So, I'll start with you, Imelda. When we talk about the future of digital transformation, what I've seen so far is we've got brilliant documents talking about what we want to do, but the issue now is the execution part. This is where everywhere, whether it is in private sector, public sector, from document to execution, it can be a challenge. Now, in your view, for when we look at Malawi 2063 in line with the digital transformation, what do we need to do for it to be successful?
Thank you for that question. Thank you for having me. I'm glad that I'm coming right after the presentation by Dr. Chipokanjo. I feel like that was very insightful, especially when it comes to the ingredients. My perspective mostly comes in when it comes to having ownership for the, you can say, policy or strategy or our vision for 2063. We are privileged to be here. We're able to discuss it, discuss the document, but are we really hitting the underprivileged? We cannot win if they do not know what is going on the ground. One thing that was highlighted was issues of local content. Are we really driving the strategy or explaining the strategy well enough to, I'm focusing more on our underprivileged because we have access to internet, we have access to news and radio more than they do. So if they are not having access to this information, are we sure we're really cascading this strategy down to them? So we have to make sure we own it as a nation and as a people together, and not just those of us who are well-to-do in this room or across, but even the underprivileged. So I know one thing that was mentioned was issues of digital literacy, and also the fact that 80% is staying in the rural communities. So we must make a deliberate effort to make sure it's cascaded down. That way, even when we are reporting, or even if there are changes or process changes, we are in it together. I can give scenario, if we are to integrate, let's say, our digital solutions in the public sector, there will be a lot of work that will have to take place to make sure it's up and functional. So streamlining efficiencies and so on, update of information. You can imagine if we do not have buy-in from the underprivileged, and we say you need to come back in and you need to put in more information. Can you imagine the type of pushback we will get? Even though we know what we're trying to achieve, if they do not know what we are trying to achieve, we will have a hard time making this vision come to light. One thing that was also raised by Dr. Kancho was the issue of high cost of digital devices. I'm coming in from the private sector, and I know what it takes to bring in these digital devices into this country. Just buying these devices, or in most cases, most people just flagship it as ICT, is a hassle in itself, because we know with the type of economic situation that we're in. So bringing it in regards to Forex and so on is already a fight in itself. When it lands, now the other fight starts. We are taxed, high taxes are here and there. Every digital solution we're trying to bring in, maybe web or app, we have NRT taxes and so on. If we are serious about digital transformation, we need to get tax exemptions, just like we do with agriculture industry, just like we do with the mining industry. If this is a central part to building our economy, then we have to have these exemptions, be it temporary if we have to. But to push on our numbers, I believe our numbers now when it comes to smart device usage is at 1 million, and we are a country of 21 million. So you can see how big the gap is. I can give an example maybe to give more light to this. Our domestic workers at a minimum get 52,000 kwacha. What they're able to buy as their you can say their option of smart device can come up to 200, 250 going up. So they're getting a minimum of 52,000. And we want everybody to be digital literate, and we want to use digital transformation as a way to grow this economy. But our underprivileged are receiving 52,000 if they're working, and the devices that are on the market are more than 250,000. We're putting in the price of bringing it into the country, the taxes that we're paying, and possible markups that are there. So we must look at it holistically and not just take advantage of the fact that we're privileged enough to buy a smartphone today if we decide to. We must adopt the fact that if she wins, you win, I win, and we win together, not just those that are privileged to the information that we have here. Lastly, there was an issue of public and private collaboration. Unfortunately, I would say most people believe that we do not have the skill set in this country. We would rather bring in systems from outside international waters, or even use skill sets from international waters. Now, what I have seen in my experience is you bring in somebody or a system that is not necessarily tailor-made to our environment or our requirements. It looks good in that moment because all you're looking at is just the top. And then it comes into our environment and we cannot customize it, we cannot integrate it to anything. Then how are we efficiently, or how are we moving when it comes to efficiency? We have local skill here that are able to build systems or workflows that are able to integrate different types of systems. You know, we provide advisory when it's needed, assessments when it's needed, but unfortunately, it looks like the public sector is not opening up to the private. The issue also of upskilling is high when it comes to the private sector because we have no choice, it's the nature of business. So we find ourselves having a client that needs a specific type of system, which is different to my next client, which is different to my next client, and in that way we are building skill. One thing that came up also in other discussions was the fact that I think with the e-government issues of, they said they were having issues of spam, right? They have implemented emailing, but they have issues of spam, or I think there was a question that came in to say, are we putting in controls with the current environment when it comes to AI? I can really, with confidence, say that we have that managed in the private sector. Why are we reinventing the wheel by trying to bring in international skill when locally we already have a workaround on that? It's good that Mr. Clarence Gama is here, who also reiterated the same, that maybe it's an issue of bringing in more people, but to say that the skill is not available would be wrong. So I would implore the public sector to open itself to the private sector. That way we collaborate, and also it will provide ownership on the private side, private sector, to say, if we fail, it's not just us, it's not just a money game, but at the end of the day, I'm failing my people as well. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Imelda, for that contribution. I think it's quite clear. It's talking to what Dr. Kanjo also talked about. She talked about Vision 2020, collaboration between private sector and public sector, and that was lacking in Vision 2020. Is that there in Malawi 2063? That's something that we definitely need to look into. Then you touched on issues around policy, and this brings me to Saiwe, who's a policy expert. So in your view, what do you think are some of the policies that as a country we can enact so that we'll be able to, it will enable this vision to succeed?
Right, thank you for that. A lot has been said on policy since yesterday, and a lot was also said by Dr. Chipo Kanjo. So let me start from this point where we all know that the country has very low level of literacy skills. We all know this. The larger population is in the rural areas, and they can't even get basic education. Just 2 days ago, I was in Jinji with, we have a partner in Ginger's Action Aid, so we went there to hand over desks to a primary school. And when we got there, they said, you're going to sit on those desks. This is the first time that the school is getting desks. So already there's that challenge, right? And then the kids, one of the kids was giving a poem, and she spoke about how they learn under the tree. It's 2024, 60 years post-independence, right? And we still have these problems. And when it starts raining, what happens? They go home. Obviously, that's a problem. Now we're speaking about bridging the gap between the urban and the rural when it comes to digital skills. We can't do that until we tackle the issue of basic literacy skills, because I believe that in order for this to be, for people to, have the digital skills, then they need at least the basic literacy skills, right? Even to use a phone. So the challenge now is, this is coming in because we all know, or we might not know, that we are in debt distress. We're continuously devaluing the kwacha in the hopes of making the economy better. And obviously, it's not getting better. We all know this. If we don't, we now know, right? And this is coming in because the government, we're continuously borrowing for consumption and not production. So this is something that Dr. Chipo also mentioned. So as long as we keep borrowing for consumption and not production, I believe we're not going to get that digital transformation that we're looking for. If we cannot fund public services like education and health, there is no way that we are going to get to that point where we are securing digital transformation. We have bigger problems that need to be dealt with in order for us to get to that point. The thing that comes with this is that we have budget cuts, austerity measures that come in because the government is trying to repay the debt that we've been in for a very long time, that is accumulated by each government as it comes. It makes me sad, actually, when we celebrate, or our politicians celebrate acquiring an extended credit facility. Why are we celebrating? Who is this money going to? Is it really going to the people that it needs to get to in order for us to get to where we want to get to in 2063? I don't think so. So those are some of the things that we need to look at. We need to now look at production. What can we do as a country in order to not just continuously import? We are rich in so many resources. We know this. But again, it comes to the issue of corruption. You bring in people, mining companies. These mining companies will come, they'll get tax havens. They'll not pay taxes, or they'll be exempted from certain things, and there are people in the background getting cuts from this, right? And that now trickles down to the education system, to the rural areas. I'm focusing on the rural areas because I work on the ground, as well as speaking to policy makers and decision makers. So I come in as a bridge between them and the policy makers. So again, it comes down to policies. Yes, we have so many, and they're amazing, they're brilliant, but just emphasizing on what other speakers have said, we need to reinforce this. We actually need to put this into action. Taxation, we are continuously increasing taxes, putting taxes on so many different things, even basic commodities that the people in the rural areas cannot even afford. It's not really working for anybody, and we know this, but we refuse. I don't know if we refuse to accept the reality of these taxes and how they're affecting us and the economy itself, and how we can actually put more into progressive taxation. We have outdated taxation policies with other countries. And this, obviously, we don't get much revenue from that because they're so outdated. The other countries like the UK, the UK-Malawi tax treaty, for example, it was done before 1950s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so we can't be using those tax treaties today. It's 2024. So those are some of the things that we need to look at. We need to start, we can't run away from borrowing, that's obvious. So we need to start borrowing for production and not consumption. We need to start also taking our government officials to task, hold them accountable. We like to talk on Facebook, these digital spaces that we have, Facebook, ranting, Twitter, using these spaces to rant. We can use that energy more productively in order to hold these governments accountable, instead of just speaking continuously and just making noise on the social media platforms. And then again, going back to the taxation, we really need to do more on that to generate revenue so that these public services like education are well funded. Currently, they're not funded as they should be according to some of these agreements that we've signed with the African Union. We're below, when it comes to education, they're below. I'm not going to get into the figures, but we're below the required percentages for funding these services. So we need to work into those services, make sure that basic literacy is achieved by everyone in this country, and then we get to the digital literacy. That way, I'm sure we'll be able to get to securing digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jesse, for that. And there were certain areas that you touched on. You talked about the educational policies that need to be aligned and updated so that they actually achieve what we want them to achieve. You spoke about the tax policies, which also Imelda touched on, that would enable this to happen. This speaks into the presentation that was there about some of the investment that is needed as well around digital transformation, and that is quite high. Then there are the fiscal policies, borrowing for consumption. It's anyone who's been you don't even need to go into class to understand that can never work. You don't even need to be an economist. In your home, you would know that's how it works. Once you eat it, it's gone. And that's it. And then there were issues around literacy. And Isabel, talk to us about literacy and developing technology talent and how this would help our transformation.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the organizers. Such a wonderful event and great to be here to contribute. All right, so I'm going to talk about the development of tech talent, which feeds into what we've been talking about around digital literacy. So to start off this conversation, I want to take us to the household level. We're going to start at home. Growing up for generations and generations, many of our guardians or parents, they would advise us on what we can become when we grow up, depending on where you grew up between the urban and rural setting. Now, I'd like to hear from a few of you. What are some of the traditional roles that your guardians or parents told you when you were growing up? Yes. A doctor, right? That's very popular. A doctor, a lawyer, accountant, teacher. These are some of the popular traditional roles we're seeing. Last week I was at church, I was watching little kids graduating from their program, and we had the top students come tell us what they want to be, and all of them said doctor. And I was like, what, no computer scientist? Shocked. So, we get what we see. We see, we see role models and you do what you see. And so, because there's this traditional career, but the world is moving so fast, we've had an emergence of new careers popping up. The problem is, many of our parents and guardians do not know about these careers that are emerging. And so what is happening is we're having a loop of people not knowing that there's a new opportunity that has arisen in the world. Because the gold standard currently is to follow the traditional way of doing things. That is, go to a university, do a 4-year program, get a certificate. All right. This is okay, and it's a good thing. It promises you stability, prestige, and also security. That's what you get from these roles. However, we are also missing a new world of tech and technology where, there's a lot of dynamic things happening. It's a very lucrative sector. I want to talk a bit more about that. So the thing that we have to do now, the job that needs to be done, is to show our community, Africa, Malawi, there is a whole new world. There is the tech world that has emerged, and it comes with new opportunities. Now I'm going to go from household to the Africa level. In terms of Africa, we've heard this from most of our presentations. 60% of our population is under 25. We have one of the youngest continents on Earth. By 2035, we're going to have the largest workforce. Now what's going to happen is we have a bit of a problem because we have huge unemployment. We have millions of young Africans unemployed. Some have certifications, some have degrees, but they're just at home sitting. However, with this problem, we do have an opportunity. The opportunity is that we have this new tech sector, which is growing at a rapid demand and has a demand of millions of jobs. So the demand for tech is growing faster than the supply that we currently have. And so Africa, with our young workforce that is growing, we can actually meet this demand. And here is the opportunity that we have. So just to also add context about this tech sector, tech jobs pay 3 to 4 times more than what our traditional sectors are paying. According to our research, we found that after graduates graduate, they usually get a salary of about 400,000, 500,000 kwacha after tax in Malawi. But fresh graduates in the tech sector can easily start on a salary of $2,000. Computer science, for example, is a very lucrative career where you can easily start your profession on $2,000. Now I'd like to tell you a bit about ALX, where I work myself. And at ALX, what we do is we provide world-class tech programs that are agile and future-proof. We've been talking about future-proofness. There's some careers, they become redundant, as we heard from the dean yesterday of MUST. People have degrees, but now after 4 years, they're redundant. At ALX, we're offering fast micro programs that will upskill you, reskill you, and make sure you're up to date with modern day requirements of employment. Now, how do we leverage technology? So at first, we initially thought, let's build schools all across the world to train millions of Africans, but we realized this is not possible. Why don't we use technology to reach people? And so we decided to create an online ecosystem, an online school where learners, young Africans across the world, aged 18 to 35, can access our online programs. All they need to have is internet and a laptop. That is it. You do not need to have an MSc. You do not need any other context, because we believe we are trying to challenge the way things are. We just believe you need to get more skills. You don't need to have the background. And so what is happening now is that we're using this opportunity to remove the physical infrastructure. No offices, everyone asks where my office is. I work remotely. I've been working remotely for the past 5 years. I don't have an office, but we're able to train millions of Africans in this continent. I just want to give a shout out. I see some of our ALX graduates here. You see, we have some of them we've met, some of them we haven't, but these are some of our top graduates sitting in the room. And some of us haven't met at all because the remote world offers this opportunity. At ALX, we promote remote work. In the country, there are very few jobs, very few opportunities, and so we're missing out on a huge opportunity to get people connected to jobs. And so remote work comes first, and that's what we are looking at. And continuous learning is something that we are also passionate about. Yesterday we heard, if you're not continuously learning new things, you're going to be redundant. AI is not going to take over, but somebody who cannot use AI will easily lose their job. So in conclusion, I just want to say that, we've had some great impact with training tech. As I already showed you, our ALX graduates here. When you talk to them, you hear some of the amazing things they're doing. We had a student in Nigeria, 25 years old, studied computer science for the first time with us from scratch. He was recently hired by our partner Tamara in Berlin, and was actually shipped from Nigeria to Berlin to go work there. That's where he is at the moment. And even in Malawi, one of our students was taken to Rwanda to work with another partner there. Challenges that we do experience, like we've heard, is we have underrepresentation of women in the tech field. A lot of women are scared to start a new career, try to do computer science, AWS, some of these programs that we offer. And so we're missing out, and we want to get those. We want to access rural and marginalized communities. We're trying to make our programs more mobile friendly, and of course translate our content from just English to other languages. So this is what we're looking at when we're talking about tech talent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel. And I think it's very, very important to understand that if we want to achieve what we want to achieve, to go on this journey, we need to develop our own talent. We can't keep relying on foreign talent. When they come in, then they should teach us, then we should be able to develop. But otherwise, then we're basically going to be working on someone else's ideas. So very, very important that we continue doing that. Now, finally, Tandy, in your role, at the African Space Agency, and I see some Nico technology stuff here. Some of you might be new, but Tandy once ran Nicotech. At the time, I remember, we used to be in the same building at the time when I was joining FDH. So now you've moved on to something grander. Now we're looking at the whole African continent. So in your role at the African Space Agency, what can you do? How can you help us? First of all, as a continent, and then as Malawi to succeed?
Thank you very much, William. Yes, I think having been in the tech sector for as many years as I've been, yes, the alumni from Nicotech, but I have alumni from way back when. So I'm going to limit the number of years I mentioned I've been around for. But yes, it's an honor to be here, and I think I was very, very appreciative of the presentation that Dr. Kanjo made, Chipo Kanjo, because she hit on some really, really crucial points. So before I speak about the African Space Agency, if you could just give me a minute to just comment on some of, and reflect on some of what she said. I think the most important thing, and I think I mentioned it briefly to General Dan Kawale earlier, is that the challenge for us to move forward, we have these beautiful conferences, we have great input, we come out inspired, then nothing. Because, and this is what happened to Vision 2020, the institutional structure to implement and carry it forward did not exist. That's fundamentally what the problem is. And I think with the many years I've been in the IT sector, both here in Malawi and worked across the continent, the biggest challenge has always been for success, setting the right institutional structure to carry forward those strategies, visions, missions. We sit down, we can do the greatest policies, but if we don't have somebody to take control and run with it, then we, sort of end up really flailing. But I digress. For the Africa Space Agency, basically, I was initially appointed by the Malawi government through MACRA to chair the task force to establish the Malawi Space Agency. So, as the chair of the Malawi Space Agency, we set up the task force in 2023. We are actually a combination of about 15, 16 members. We've been working virtually since we started. We've been honored to have passionate, dedicated, patriotic Malawians in the space sector, in the diaspora, who have worked with us. And that actually amazed the other African countries, because those that don't have a space program or space agency are all trying to figure out how do we start. Some of them like, okay, somebody send up a satellite. So you send a satellite and say, now we've got a space agency and we're functional. But the approach that was taken with us in Malawi was to say that we have some expertise, IT and technical expertise in country, but we don't have the space experts here. We have no space program. But the space experts that we called on in the diaspora have worked with us, waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning for online calls to develop the framework and the strategies for us to set up the Malawi Space Agency. And that is still in process. It's an ongoing process at the moment. We have developed our roadmap. We've established subcommittees that have done quite a bit of work. And the vision for that, for establishing the Malawi Space Agency, was also based on the 2063. It's part of achieving our 2063 digital transformation. That's part of the goal. And everybody says, well, why do you need a space agency? We've got, as has been mentioned, so many other problems. And I'll just give you a little anecdote as to why it's important for African countries to get into the space sector. In February this year, just before I was elected Vice President of the Africa Space Council at the AU, 2 billionaires, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, I think we all know of them, Amazon and Microsoft, they announced that they will be opening a copper mine in 2027. Now you're like, these guys, these billionaires, copper mine, what's that got to do with anything? They found one of the, apparently I think about the second largest deposit of copper in the world. And this copper mine is going to be opened in Zambia in 2027. Now what are these two guys in the US opening a mine in Zambia, and how? Actually, they discovered the deposits through a company that they bought in California that used space data and AI to identify the deposits in Zambia. So let's understand that. They didn't have to go anywhere. Using space data and AI, sitting in California, they were able to tell what level of minerals were available in Zambia. So we as African countries, if we say we don't need this space data story, everybody else is using it. So that's just a really, really very practical example of why it's important. But beyond that, as I've engaged in the sector and I've visited some of the countries that have been more successful, have already established their space agencies, like Angola, for example. Angola has done some amazing work. They invested in their own satellites. So they've invested, I think they've already invested in the second satellite. So they've used their space agency for not just telecommunications, which is the second satellite, but in terms of Earth observation, what they call Earth observation. And with their satellites, they're managing all the sectors that we're talking about. They're managing their agriculture, they're managing their infrastructure. Angola is on this mission to really build roads after the war across the country. Now we know with roadworks like we've had going here, contractors get paid based on what they've done, how many certification of what levels they've done and what they've completed. And this is a huge country. How do you monitor it? They have 30 centimeter accuracy of visibility of any of their infrastructure development anywhere across the country. So they, the road contractor will come and say, no, but I've done so many 10 kilometers and like, just a minute, actually that's 8.3 kilometers that you've completed, okay? Now, Angola, as we know, is a company with oil wells, right? They also use their space data for analyzing any oil spills on any oil well that they've got offshore. And they can immediately tell which oil well has got what spill, at what rate it's dispersing oil, and whether or not the company responsible has addressed it. And that information is relayed to the regulator. So in terms of managing this, it's phenomenal. In terms of agriculture, which is what we are often interested in, you're talking about precision agriculture because they can tell you the mineral content. Space data can tell you the mineral content of your soil. It can tell you the chlorophyll in your crop. It can give you crop estimate data from space. So when we're saying that we want to do smart agriculture, you can't do smart agriculture unless you have smart data. And the place you're going to get that smart data, accurate, timely, is from space. So as a tool, it's phenomenally powerful. But going forward, how does that benefit Malawi overall as a country when we're looking at all the challenges that we've got? I was inspired when we had the space conference last year, because not only do we have our own space entrepreneurs, I was pleasantly surprised to see that. A young man, Chris Daka, I think from Must, he's now doing his PhD, but he did his master's, I understand, in India. But he's innovating, he's creating. Now, I may have mentioned something about intellectual property yesterday. Now, the reason why it's important to consider that is the fact that young men like Chris Daka will be innovating and creating new and innovative things for space. Immediately he does that, the UK government and the US government are after him, because those innovations, they want to own all of them. So we have 1.4 billion people. There's going to be a lot of innovation coming out of the continent. We need to ensure that we protect it, and the revenue that is generated from that reverts to the people that actually created it. So those are things to protect. But in addition to that, and this now speaks to the challenge you said about the number of people getting educated or getting access to education, we also have another very strange dilemma. We had a conference with about 300 people here, a lot of them youth. And it was like, wow. A lot of them who already had qualifications in space sciences, remote sensing, GIS, and so on. What job opportunities do they have? I'm still at home. I'm volunteering. I'm a bank clerk, sorry. I'm a teacher. No job opportunities. So for me, what I see, when I look at the space sector, I look at opportunities where people can work from anywhere. And the classic example is when there was an earthquake in Morocco, I think it was, they had one not so long ago. There was a young lady, and I've met her, she's about 32, 33, from Cameroon. From Cameroon. And when the earthquake happened in Morocco, her phone was ringing off the hook. Why? Because she has a business in Cameroon where she actually has high quality images. And she had high quality images of the city of Morocco before the earthquake. So all remote services were calling her to buy. It wasn't for free. So she's sitting in Cameroon, she doesn't have to move, earning hard currency, and any young person can do that. Again, access to the internet, access to equipment, skills, and we're teaching the skills. MUST and our universities, University of Mzuzu University, they're all teaching, churning out these students, but there's actually nowhere for them to be employed. So when we look at the Africa Space Agency, one of the things we did recently is we just had a meeting with the European Space Agency, because globally there are now only two continental space agencies. That's European Space Agency and now the African Space Agency. And Europeans are very keen to work with us because they see the potential for, one, the market, but two, the skills base. So it's a sector that I see only growing, and the potential for it is phenomenal. And recognizing at the end of the day, for Malawi, one of the biggest assets we have is our human capital. One of the first things we did, one of the first stakeholder engagements we had as a Malawi Space Agency was with the vice chancellors of 15 of the top universities here in Malawi. Because what we were requesting them to do is to start integrating, because they were going through curriculum reviews, and we said, on a practical level, we need to start building the capacity to engage in the space sector. So we requested them to integrate space data into their curricula. That was the first step we've taken. So going forward, we hope that we're going to be able to, we will be engaging with other stakeholders. There's a lot of work to do, and we're hoping that we'll have your support going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tandy, for that. And a big challenge to Professor Kwali, and who's hosting us today together with the Malawi Defense Force. What next after this conference? And I'm sure we'll hear more about that. There's an afternoon session where they will actually tell us what are the practical steps that will lead to actual execution. Another challenge to the universities, Dr. Kanjo here, Dr. Zimba over there, what are you doing to educate the kids so that they go beyond just being a doctor, an accountant like me? I wasn't given a choice. I was told if you don't do accounting, I'm not paying for your university tuition. Are we live? I hope we're not live. And my father is not watching this. But yes, it is what it is. But there are new careers out there, as some of our panelists have spoken. And also a challenge to the private sector. Create the industries, the jobs, so that we're able to actually employ these young kids that the universities will be churning out in these new industries. Moving on, I would like to call upon Ms. Barbara Tsega, Commissioner of Police, for Eastern Region. If you can stand over there. Kelias Mlenga, the Deputy Director, Legal for Consumer Affairs, as well as Brigadier General Kondwani Gift Kalino, Commander, 22 Signals Brigade, Malawi Defense Force. I would like you to be the first contributors to the discussion that we've had with our panelists before we can open up to the audience for questions. So if, Barbara, are you ready? If I can hand over to you for your contribution.
Thank you very much, moderator. I'll look at everything from a security point of view. You know, from yesterday up until this time, we have been talking about agricultural commercialization, we've been talking about industrialization as well as urbanization. You will all agree with me that this cannot happen without peace and security. And you know, every time I read through the agenda, every time I am reminded of the agenda, I, in a way, get excited. But as someone coming from security, I also get anxious because I know that we are going to have a very big job in the future. And if we don't build a very good foundation now for future law enforcers, then we are going to be in a lot of problems. So already, as the security sector, we have seen a shift from the traditional types of crimes to, you know, such kind of crimes. Someone already talked about Airtel officers that are found within the walls of Chichiri prison and everywhere else. There was a picture the other time circulating where we had these men in our white foyers and with a caption saying, Airtel workers lining up for a meal. So that just shows that we indeed also need to shift our minds from the traditional kind of policing and move to the other side. Another good example is now we have seen also a rise in cross-border crimes. You cannot sort those ones out using the traditional means of resolving issues. And sooner or later, we are going to come across AI-generated crimes as Malawians. So that also should make us shift our minds. There was an example yesterday that was given by Dr. Siwande, where money was transferred, $35 million was transferred because of an AI-generated thing. So we can choose to be complacent and say, these things are not going to come to Malawi, but sooner or later, these things are going to happen here. So as law enforcers, we can choose to say, no, we are going to be resistant to change, but the world is not going to wait for us. And that definitely should tell us something about our Agenda 2063. So in brief, what are we doing as the security sector? One thing that we are trying to invest in is capacity building. Talk of capacity building to do with human resource, capacity building to do with infrastructure. We may not be doing it at a pace that we would want to do it, but we are trying. I was excited yesterday when Margaret talked about strengthening the laws. You know, as the law enforcer, you are only as good as the law that you're enforcing. If the law is bad, you can't enforce anything. Already, we are having issues with the evidence. You will agree with me that now when things are happening, people are capturing the incident as it's happening. And for you as a law enforcer, for you as a prosecutor, you take that video to court, they'll ask you, who is the author? I got that thing from Facebook. I will try and go through the trail, but definitely I am going to have problems. So the strengthening of the laws is a very welcome development. We are following it through as law enforcers because we know we are largely going to benefit